Do you have some old frames lying around collecting dust? Today, I'm going to show you how to transform some of your old picture frames into useful home decor. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I would love for you to click that subscribe button right below the video. Our first project, I have this gorgeous decorative frame. It measures 10 and 7/8 of an inch by 13 and 1/4 of an inch. It has a really nice backing that has clamps on it. Now my backing does not come completely off, so the first thing I'm going to do is remove my glass and give it a nice thorough cleaning on both sides to remove any grime, dirt, or debris. I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to be covering it with this beautiful peel and stick wallpaper from Dollar Tree. Now it has a very nice smooth surface on the front, so that's going to work perfect for what I want to transform this frame into. I'm going to set that glass on top and mark each one of the corners so that I can line my design up. You could use some scissors, but I'm going to use a paper cutter so I can make sure I get nice straight edges all the way around and that my design is even in the center. Once you have everything cut out, it is now time to apply it to the glass. You just peel the backing from the wallpaper. Now I do have to turn my glass around so I can make sure that I line everything up at the bottom. And once I get that first end started and I press it down real good, I'm going to turn it back around so that I'll be able to pull the backing from the wallpaper and press it down as I go along. Now this wallpaper adheres really well and it did not leave any wrinkles. Now let's work on the frame. I'm going to paint mine with 2 thin coats of white chalk paint, allowing each coat to dry in between. And I'm making sure to get down into all of those details on the frame as well as the inside rim, because you will be able to see that when the project is finished. Now once my white paint has dried after the second coat, I'm going to take some folk art enamel in the color gold, and I'm going to apply this with a sponge brush just by dabbing very little paint on the end of that brush and then very gently going over all of those details on the frame. Now don't worry about if you make a mistake. You can fix it. It's just paint. Just make sure that you let it dry. See, I have some spots here that I don't want to be gold, so I let that dry and then I'm going to cover it back up with some white paint. Now once all of that is dry, we can add our glass back to the frame. Now I want to use mine as a tray, so I'm going to reinforce that by applying some E6000 right inside that groove because I want to make sure that glass does not come out, and make sure you have a nice sturdy backing if you're going to use it for a decorative tray. I am loving this color combination of blue, white, and gold. For this project, we're going to use a regular photo frame with the stand on the back. We're going to remove the backing as well as the glass. My glass was pretty dirty, so I'm going to give it a good thorough cleaning with some Windex and make sure that's dry. Then I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and very, very lightly and carefully scuff up the glass. Then I'll make sure that I clean any of that debris up and be really, really careful since you scuffed it up in its little glass particles. I'm going to go ahead and clean the mat and the glass again and make sure it's dry. I want to scuff it up because I'm going to be using a chalkboard craft paint. Now my favorite is this kind from Dollar General, but I have very little of the black left. When I went to Dollar General to buy some more, they did not have black, but they did have this beautiful blue color, so we're going to give this a try. I'm going to apply one thin coat in one direction. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to apply my second coat going in the opposite direction. And I'm trying to keep my brush strokes at a very minimum to create a nice smooth surface. Now, once that dried, I realized that this was not going to work. The scuffing of the glass with the sandpaper just didn't work. It's still coming up in certain little areas. So I'm going to give it a base coat of Waverly's chalk paint in white because chalk paint adheres to just about everything. I'm going to give it a nice thin coat just like I did with the blue, let that dry and go in the opposite direction until it is fully covered. Once that paint has dried, I'm going to go back over it with the blue chalkboard paint, just like I previously did, going in one direction, let it dry, then go in the opposite direction, and try to keep your brush strokes at a minimum. We need to season this since it's a new chalkboard, so very lightly take a piece of chalk and go over the entire surface, then take a dry paper towel to remove that. You want to season your chalkboard because if you don't, the first thing that you write on there will always have that faint image if you don't season your chalkboard first. To complement that gorgeous blue color, I'm going to paint the frame with 2 coats of that same white Waverly chalk paint and allow that to dry. Then we can insert our chalkboard into the frame. That's when I realized I didn't paint the back of the frame, so I do go back and paint that to give it a nice finished look. Now you have a gorgeous chalkboard to display all of your notes to your loved ones. This is a 14 3/8 of an inch by 10 5/8 of an inch frame. I'm going to remove the staples using my heavy-duty staple remover. I have this linked in my Amazon store, and that link is in my description box below. If you're interested, it just makes it really easy to remove those staples. I'm going to remove the hanger as well as that backing, and then all of those tiny little staples that are holding the decorative part of this picture together, I'm going to remove all of those and then pop the backing or the decorative part as well as the glass out. We're only going to use the frame for this project. Since that backing was glued down, I'm going to sand all of that glue off and clean the back up because I want to keep this frame just like it is. It is a gorgeous brown color with like a gold undertone. I'm going to give it a good thorough cleaning, and then I'm going to cut down some chicken wire. So if you guys have been with my channel for a while, you know that I have a farm. So we always have some scrap pieces of chicken wire laying around, but you can find these at the craft store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. You want to cut it down longer than the inside of your frame, and we're going to attach it on the inside using a staple gun. Now, I cut mine a little too short because some of the pieces I was not able to staple down. So you may want to make sure you cut it a little bit longer because you want to pull it nice and tight as you're going through and stapling them. The ones that I couldn't staple down, I'm going to take some hot glue. I'm going to place that right behind those little pieces. Then push the metal piece down, add some more hot glue on top of that, and instead of sitting there and holding it and waiting for that hot glue to cool down, I'm going to use my hairdryer on the cool setting, and that's going to speed up the cooling down process so I don't have to sit there and hold it as long. So just go back and get those pieces that you couldn't get the staples in because you want to make sure it's nice and tight and secure to your frame. Then if you have any extra long pieces, go back, cut those off, and then take a pair of pliers to tuck them in. Make sure they're not going to scratch the surface of anything, especially when you hang this back up. So I wanted my hanger to be at the top going the long way because it was originally on the side. So I went ahead and pre-drilled some holes so I could reattach that hanger. And if you want to use it as a decor piece, you can add a beautiful grapevine wreath. I'm going to decorate this one using some lavender stems that I'm going to cut off of a bundle. And I'm going to bend those to the shape of the wreath and then tuck them down inside of the form that's holding the grapevines together. Now I did end up using 2 bundles to make sure mine was nice and full, and then you can attach this directly to the chicken wire. You can change the wreath out for every season, and this is just a beautiful decor piece. If you didn't want to use it for decor, you could add some jewelry to it and display your jewelry, or have a beautiful way to hang your jewelry up. You guys let me know if you like it better as a home decor piece with the wreath or to display jewelry. For this project, make sure you choose a frame that has something supporting the backing in it. You're really going to need that for this project, and this one has those staples in it, and it has quite a few going all the way around it. We're going to take the backing, go out to the shop, and I'm going to be using this piece of scrap plastic pegboard that we've had in our shop for years. I'm going to use the backing to trace that out, and then I'm going to clamp this to my plywood surface to make sure it doesn't move around, because I'm going to be cutting this with a skill saw, so make sure you have your safety glasses on. If you are not comfortable with a skill saw, you could use the MDF kind and maybe cut that with a utility knife, but I love using power tools, so this was super fun for me. So once we get that cut out, we're going to take it back inside. We're going to clean it up real good. If you got a new piece, you don't need to do that, but since mine had been out there for years, it had a lot of dirt, cobwebs, all kinds of grime on there, so we're going to clean it up. The frame, I'm going to give this one coat of black chalk paint, but since it's white pegboard, you could paint this any color you like. And I didn't forget to paint the back this time. Now we're going to go ahead, put our pegboard in there, and make sure we push all those tabs down so that they are flush with the pegboard, so it's not going to come loose. Once you get all of those down, I'm going to use the hanger that's already on there, but to protect my wall, I'm going to use these felt stickers. And since they're pretty thin, I'm going to place one on top of each other, so it'll be 2 in each corner. This is going to give you enough space so that you can hang your pieces up on your pegboard, but also protect your wall from getting scratched. Now you have a pretty way to organize your craft tools. I've had this sign for a few years now. I think it came from Family Dollar, maybe for about $5. It's not real wood. It's kind of like a faux wood, but I like the size of it. I'm going to remove the backing, and since it was glued down, I need to remove all of the glue so that the inside surface is nice and smooth. So once all of that is removed, I want to take a measurement of the inside of the frame, the long parts. So mine ends up being like 23¼ inches long. So I'm going to be using some 3/8 by 3-inch pine board. You can find these at Lowe's. This is the perfect width to fit down inside of this frame. So I'm going to be using these 2 boards to create a frame, a box for it, but then I want to make some shelves, and for that I'm going to be using some 1/2 inch by 3 pine boards. This is just a little bit thicker, and it's going to be a little bit sturdier. So let's head outside and make some cuts. So I'm going to take that 3/8 pine board, and I'm going to cut that down to 23¼ inch, and I'm going to need 2 of those for the frame itself for the long sides. So I just used the first one as a template to cut the second one down to make sure they are the exact same size. I'm going to dry fit it, make sure they're going to fit in there, and then I'm going to take a measurement between each of those 2 boards so that I can cut the top and bottom pieces. Mine ended up being 10 5/8, so I had enough left over from the board to create the top and bottom piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those down to 10 5/8, and then again we're going to dry fit it, make sure everything's going to fit inside that frame perfectly. Since I know it's 10 5/8, I'm going to take that 1/2 inch pine board, and I'm going to cut down 3 pieces to the 10 5/8 to create 3 shelves. Once everything's cut, it is time for us to assemble this. So I'm using some Gorilla Wood glue, and I'm going to attach the bottom piece to the two side pieces first. I added a nice amount of glue on each end, and then I'm going to secure that with my brad nailer. So I'm going to put 2 on each side and make sure those ends are flush so that it will be square. I'm going to measure from that bottom board up 7 inches on each side. That's where I'm going to place my shelf. So I'm going to do that the exact same way by putting some wood glue on each end, putting it next to my marking, and then I'll use that brad nailer to nail it in. Now, I did not do the top piece yet because I'm going to work my way up to the top piece. That way I can make sure everything's nice and tight. So the next shelf I measured up 5 inches. Again, secured it the same way. And then the next shelf I measured up 5 inches again. That's going to leave me 5 inches between that top shelf and our top piece. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in the top piece. Now everything should be flush and square. I'm going to wipe away any excess glue, and then I'm using some plastic wood filler. I like this stuff. It's very soft, it's very easy to work with, and it dries really, really fast. So I'm going to fill in all of those holes. Once it dries, I'm going to take my sander and sand all of that down so everything's smooth. Once I clean all of that sanding dust off, it is time to paint. I'm using some white paint that I already had on hand. It is an eggshell finish. I'm going to paint this with 2 coats, and I'm painting the entire shelf. For the actual picture frame, I decided to paint it with some white chalk paint because it has this glossy type feel. Even though I ran over it with a little bit of sandpaper, I don't think that the house paint that I used on the shelf is going to adhere to this, so I know that the chalk paint will. So I'm going to give that 2 coats and make sure that everything matches. I want to put some hangers on the back, so the 7-inch shelf, I want that at the bottom. So I'm going to place the hangers at the opposite end, and these are just some sawtooth hangers that I already had in my craft room, probably came off of another project. I held those in place, made a mark, and I do recommend you pre-drill it to make sure you don't split your wood. Then I'm going to use some of these felt stickers. They're about the same depth as that sawtooth hanger. I'm going to place these at the bottom so when I hang it on the wall, the bottom doesn't lean back since the hanger sticks out a little further. Now it's time to put these 2 pieces together since all the paint has dried. I'm going to adhere this with some E6000. The frame itself is not supporting anything. It's just decorative to go on the front of the shelf, so the E6000 is going to hold it there perfectly. I'm going to set that shelf down in there. I'm going to let that E6000 set up overnight, and I'm going to use mine to organize my craft paint, but this would be really pretty in a bathroom as well. You guys let me know what you think of project number 5. If you would like to see how I made this 2-tiered tray out of some old frames, I'll have a link at the top right of your screen, and I'll also have a link in my description box below. I made this about 2 years ago, and I absolutely love this 2-tiered tray. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found tons of inspiration. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love for you to click that subscribe button. If you have a favorite out of today's video, let me know in the comments section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.